The vast emptiness of space shimmered as the Harmony's light emerged from its final jump. The crystalline vessel's translucent hull captured and redistributed starlight in mesmerizing patterns, a physical manifestation of the Harmonious Collective's dedication to beauty and peace. First speaker Lyra watched the unfamiliar star system unfold before her, 6 crystalline appendages gently swaying with anticipation. Scan complete. First speaker, announced Navigator Tell, their bioluminescent form pulsing with soft blues. The third planet shows signs of advanced civilization, consistent with our long-range observations. Life readings are abundant. Lyra's inner light brightened with joy. Another spacefaring race to welcome into the collective's embrace. For 10,000 years, they had spread harmony across the galaxy, sharing knowledge and culture with every species they encountered. Violence was a primitive thing, long since evolved beyond. The serenity of the moment shattered as proximity alarms screamed through the breach. A dozen small vessels had appeared from behind a nearby asteroid cluster, their hulls dark and angular, completely unlike the crystalline architecture of the collective. Energy signatures detecting weapon systems, Tell reported, their lights flickering with confusion. But that's impossible. No advanced species would still maintain. The unknown ships opened fire. Lyra watched in horror as energy beams lanced through space where the Harmony's light had been moments before. Tell's instinctive navigation protocols had saved them, moving the ship clear microseconds before impact. Send the peace protocols, Lyra ordered, her crystalline form vibrating with distress. All frequencies. They must understand we mean no harm. The Harmony's light began broadcasting the ancient mathematical sequences that had prevented conflict for millennia. Patterns of prime numbers, universal constants, and harmonious frequencies filled the void between ships. The attackers responded with another volley of weapons fire. First speaker. Tell's voice carried notes of panic never before heard in their species. 3 larger vessels approaching at combat velocity. Lyra felt her hope diminish. Had they discovered some terrible exception to the universal march toward peace, a species that had reached the stars while maintaining its primitive violence? The 3 new ships were massive compared to their attackers, their hulls gleaming with polished metal rather than crystal. They moved with practiced precision, taking up positions between the Harmony's light and their assailants. Unknown vessel, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force vessel Dauntless. A voice transmitted in clear, universal frequencies. We've been hunting these pirates for weeks. Stay behind us, and you'll be safe. Before Lyra could respond, the space around them erupted in carefully controlled chaos. The human vessels launched swarms of smaller craft that moved with impossible coordination. Energy beams and projectiles crisscrossed the void in complex patterns that spoke of centuries of martial development. The collective crew watched in amazement as the humans systematically disabled their attackers. Each shot was precisely calculated, targeting engines and weapons while avoiding critical systems. Within minutes, the pirates were drifting helplessly. Vessel secured, Captain Chen transmitted. We're dispatching boarding teams to apprehend the pirates. Are you damaged? Do you require assistance? Lyra struggled to process what she had witnessed. The humans had wielded devastating power with extraordinary restraint. They had protected strangers without hesitation, using violence in service of peace. We are undamaged, Lyra responded finally. I am first speaker Lyra of the Harmonious Collective. We came seeking peaceful first contact with your species. There was a pause before Chen replied, humor evident in her voice. Well, first speaker, I'd say you found it. Though perhaps not quite as peacefully as you hoped. Welcome to Earth space. As boarding shuttles moved to secure the pirate vessels, Lyra conferred with her crew. They had prepared for every possible first contact scenario, except this one. A species that had mastered the stars not by abandoning violence, but by learning to use it wisely. Captain Chen, Lyra transmitted, her crystalline form now steady with resolve. The Harmonious Collective would very much like to learn more about your people, Perhaps we have been limited in our understanding of peace and how it may be maintained. We be honored, first speaker, Chen replied. Though I should warn you, we're not always this exciting. Usually there's more paperwork involved. As the Harmony's light fell into formation with the Earth vessels for the journey to their homeworld, Lyra contemplated the day's events. The collective had believed that advanced civilization and warfare were mutually exclusive, yet here was humanity, proving that wisdom didn't always mean abandoning the sword, but learning to use it in defense of others. The humans were an impossibility by collective understanding, warriors who fought for peace, soldiers who valued life, a species that had reached the stars not despite their martial nature, but partially because of it. Perhaps, Lyra reflected, the galaxy still had much to teach them about harmony after all. 3 months after first contact, the gleaming spires of Earth's orbital diplomatic center hosted an unprecedented gathering. First speaker Lyra's crystalline form cast rainbow patterns across the conference room as she addressed the assembled human and collective representatives. The initial shock of discovering a militaristic spacefaring race had given way to cautious fascination. Your defense forces have already helped secure 4 of our trade routes, Lyra acknowledged, her inner light pulsing with gratitude. The collective has not lost a single vessel to pirates since our agreement began. Admiral Helena Torres nodded, her weathered face serious despite her satisfaction. We're glad to help. Your ship's scanning technology has revolutionized our early warning systems. This partnership benefits everyone. The peaceful atmosphere shattered as every communication device in the room activated simultaneously. A message burst through on all frequencies, its desperate tone cutting through protocol and encryption alike. The holographic display showed a collective vessel, but one that bore terrible damage. Its crystalline hull was shattered in multiple places, its characteristic glow dimmed to almost nothing. The being that appeared on screen was barely recognizable as a member of the collective, their crystalline form cracked and darkened. They're coming, the damage being transmitted. The convergence has returned. 3 systems already lost. Our peace means nothing to them. They consume everything. No negotiation, no mercy. If anyone receives this, run. Run or. The transmission cut off in static. Silence gripped the conference room. Lyra's form had dimmed to an almost ghostly translucence. The convergence, she whispered. They were supposed to be extinct. A cautionary tale from our ancient history, nothing more. Admiral Torres was already activating her command protocols. Analysis of that transmission. Origin point. A young lieutenant responded quickly. Signal traced to the collective's outer territories, sir. Approximately 40 light-years from Earth space. Message shows signs of being repeated through multiple relay points. First speaker. Torres turned to Lyra. We need everything you have on this convergence. Even if it's just legends, there might be useful information. Lyra's form flickered with distress. They appear in our oldest records from before we achieved unity. A force that consumed entire civilizations, not just for resources, but seemingly for the pleasure of destruction. They disappeared thousands of years ago, when the collective was young. We assumed they had destroyed themselves, as all violent species must eventually do. Clearly not, Torres replied grimly. Lieutenant, show me the vessel's damage patterns. The holographic display zoomed in on the broken collective ship. Torres studied it with practiced eyes. These aren't random attacks. See these impact points. Systematic destruction of key systems. Whatever this convergence is, they're intelligent and tactical. What do we do? One of the collective representatives chimed, their tone carrying harmonic overtones of fear. We have no weapons, no combat experience. Our entire civilization is built on peaceful cooperation. Torres shared a look with her fellow human officers before responding. Then it's time you learned. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to protect, to defend what you've built. You would teach us to fight. Lyra's tone carried equal parts horror and desperate hope. The collective has not raised a weapon in anger for 10,000 years. And we'll help you keep that record, Torres assured her. But there's a difference between raising a weapon in anger and raising it in defense of others. You don't have to become warmongers to learn how to protect yourselves. The room erupted in discussion. The collective representatives debated among themselves in their musical language, their forms flickering with conflicting emotions. The humans waited patiently, though Taurus continued to issue quiet orders to her staff. Finally, Lyra's glow stabilized. The collective has always believed that violence, even in defense, would corrupt us. That maintaining perfect peace was the only way to prevent descending into savagery. She paused, her crystal structure catching the light. But perhaps, as you have shown us, there is wisdom in being ready to defend that peace. Torres nodded solemnly. We'll begin immediately. Captain Chen's group has already worked successfully with your ships. We'll expand that program. Teach your people basic defense, ship handling, tactical coordination. And if we must fight, Lyra asked softly, then you'll fight to protect, not to destroy. Torres replied, just as we do. The goal isn't to become warriors, but to be ready when peace isn't an option. As the meeting transformed into a planning session, Lyra reflected on how far they'd come from that first startling encounter. The collective had thought humanity's military nature made them dangerous. Now that same nature might be their only hope for survival. Outside the diplomatic center, Earth's defense fleets were already mobilizing. The humans moved with practiced efficiency, decades of training evident in every action. They prepared for war not with bloodthirst, but with grim determination and careful planning. The convergence was coming, and they would find something they hadn't faced in their long history of consumption. A peaceful race learning the art of war from those who had mastered it without losing their humanity. The galaxy was about to witness what happened when the wisdom of peace met the necessity of steel. Captain Sarah Chen watched from the command deck of the Dauntless as another formation of collective ships attempted the defense pattern her crew had been teaching them. The crystalline vessels moved with increasing confidence, their natural grace beginning to merge with military precision. Better, she transmitted to the formation. But remember, predictable patterns are vulnerable patterns. You need to maintain randomness within the structure. We are trying, Captain, responded Guide Tell, their voice carrying harmonics of frustration. But our ships are designed to move in harmony, not chaos. Then use that harmony, Chen suggested, an idea forming. Show me how your ships would normally move together. The collective vessels began a flowing dance through space, their movements synchronized yet complex. Each ship anticipated the other's actions, creating beautiful patterns that seemed to defy normal flight dynamics. Lieutenant Park, Chen called to her tactical officer. Analysis. Park studied the display intently. Their movements are actually incredibly complex, Captain. Multiple vectors, constant position adjustments. If we could adapt their existing flight patterns into combat maneuvers. Exactly what I was thinking. Chen opened the channel again. Guide Tell, keep your ships moving exactly as they are. Dauntless will play the role of attacker. Let's see how your harmony holds up under pressure. The human warship moved to engage, firing simulated weapons at the collective formation. To everyone's surprise, the flowing patterns of the crystalline ships proved remarkably effective at evading fire. Their movements were unpredictable precisely because they followed a logic humans hadn't been trained to recognize. Now you're getting it, Chen encouraged. You don't need to abandon your nature to protect yourselves. You just need to adapt it. Similar scenes played out across the joint training space. Human instructors learned to work with collective instincts rather than against them. The aliens' natural emphasis on harmony and cooperation proved invaluable for fleet coordination. Their advanced scanning technology, originally designed for peaceful exploration, was repurposed into incredibly effective tactical systems. On the Harmony's light, First Speaker Lyra observed the training with mixed emotions. They're learning so quickly, she noted to Admiral Torres, who had come aboard to assess progress. They are, Torres agreed, and in ways we didn't expect. Your people's approach to space travel is revolutionizing our tactical doctrines. We've been so focused on conventional military thinking that we missed some elegant solutions. A junior collective member approached, their crystalline form vibrating with excitement. First speaker, Admiral, we've adapted our atmospheric purification systems into point defense arrays. The same principles that remove harmful particles from our ships can be used to intercept incoming projectiles. Torres smiled. See, that's exactly what I mean. We've been building dedicated point defense weapons for centuries, but you found a way to create a dual-purpose system that's potentially more effective. But will it be enough? Lyra's inner light dimmed slightly. The convergence consumed entire civilizations in our ancient history, even civilizations that fought back. Those civilizations fought alone, Torres reminded her. You have allies now. And more importantly, you're learning to fight smart, not just hard. Their conversation was interrupted by an alert from the training area. One of the collective ships had successfully executed a perfect defensive maneuver, using their crystalline hull's reflective properties to scatter sensor readings while maintaining formation integrity. Remarkable, Torres observed. Your ship's natural properties, combined with your crew's inherent sense of harmony, create defense patterns we never considered. The convergence will be expecting either pure military resistance or no resistance at all. This hybrid approach might be exactly what we need. Lyra's form brightened slightly. We are beginning to understand. The human's gift isn't just teaching us to fight. It's showing us how to remain true to ourselves while learning to defend what we cherish. The training continued, day after day. Collective ships learned to turn their peaceful technology to defensive purposes. Their natural abilities in cooperation and harmony were adapted into fleet tactics that human strategists found fascinating. The crystalline vessels began to move like schools of fish, each ship part of a greater whole, their movements both beautiful and deadly. But it wasn't just the collective that was learning. Human crews found themselves adopting elements of their allies' philosophy. They discovered that the aliens' emphasis on harmony could improve combat efficiency. Several human ships began experimenting with incorporating collective sensor technology and flight patterns into their own operations. It's a true synthesis, Chen remarked to her crew as they watched another successful joint exercise. We're not turning them into warriors. We're helping them become something new, protectors who can fight without losing their dedication to peace. The training space had become a laboratory of innovation. Collective ships now moved with confident precision, their peaceful technology repurposed in ways their designers had never imagined. Human vessels had adopted more fluid, cooperative tactics. Together, they were creating a new form of space combat, one that emphasized protection over destruction, harmony over dominance. As the joint fleet grew in size and capability, news arrived from the outer territories. The convergence was still advancing, consuming everything in their path. But now, for the first time in their ancient history, they would face an enemy they had never encountered before, a force that combined human military prowess with collective harmony. The question was, would this new approach be enough to stop an enemy that had never known defeat? The first signs of the convergence's approach came not from long-range sensors, but from the silence. Entire sectors of space went dark as communication relays fell silent. The joint human collective defense fleet waited at the edge of the Mirian system, knowing it would be next. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Determination, watching tactical displays with practiced calm. Around her vessel, dozens of human warships held formation with their collective counterparts. The crystalline ships no longer moved with uncertain grace, but with purposeful harmony. Signal from the outer sensor network, Lieutenant Park reported from his station. Multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace. Configuration unknown. The convergent ships appeared like wounds in space, their hulls seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with an unsettling organic fluidity, their forms constantly shifting and changing. By the eternal harmony, first speaker Lyra's voice came through the command channel, her usual musical tones tight with tension. They're exactly as the ancient records described. All ships, battle formations, Torres ordered calmly. Collective vessels, implement Protocol Sigma. Human ships, standard defense screen. Remember your training. The joint fleet moved with practiced precision. Collective ships arranged themselves in flowing patterns that seemed random but followed complex mathematical harmonies. Human warships took up supporting positions, their more conventional formations complementing their allies' fluid approach. The Convergence fleet accelerated toward them without any attempt at communication. Their ships began to shift, sprouting organic-looking weapon arrays and massive claws designed to tear through hull plating. "They're not even going to try diplomacy," Captain Chen observed from the Dauntless. "Straight to the attack. All ships," Torres broadcast, "engage according to plan. Show them what harmony and steel can do together." The space between the fleets erupted in chaos as the Convergence launched their first attack. Beams of dark energy lanced out, seeking targets, but the collective ships flowed around the attacks like water, their movements guided by both their natural grace and human tactical training. Their crystalline hulls scattered enemy targeting sensors while their repurposed atmospheric systems created clouds of defensive particles. Human warships added their own strength to the defense, conventional weapons blazing. Their attacks were precisely coordinated with collective movements, using the alien sensor technology to find weak points in the Convergence ship's ever-shifting forms. "First wave analysis," Park called out. "Their ships adapt to attack patterns. Each time we hit them the same way, they're harder to damage." "As expected," Torres replied. "Implement variation protocols. Keep them guessing." The battle shifted as both sides adjusted their tactics. The Convergence's biological ships demonstrated their ancient experience, attempting to isolate and overwhelm individual targets. But the joint fleet's hybrid defense proved difficult to counter. When they tried to predict human military patterns, they faced collective harmony. When they adapted to collective movements, they met human tactical innovations. A Convergence ship managed to close with one of the collective vessels, its claws reaching for the crystalline hull. But this wasn't the same peaceful race they had consumed in ancient times. The collective ship's hull suddenly pulsed with brilliant light, its crystalline structure channeling energy in ways the human engineers had helped them develop. The Convergence ship recoiled, its organic sensors overloaded. "Direct hit on enemy flagship," Chen reported with satisfaction. "The Collective's crystalline resonance weapons are effective. They can't adapt to something they've never encountered before." The battle continued for hours, neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The Convergence's ability to adapt made them fearsome opponents, but the combined human collective tactics prevented them from bringing their full strength to bear against any single target. Finally, the dark ships began to pull back, their forms shifting into more streamlined shapes for retreat. The joint fleet maintained discipline, not pursuing too aggressively. "They're running," Park announced, his voice tight with contained excitement. "No," Torres corrected grimly. "They're adapting. This was a test. They wanted to see what we could do." She opened a channel to Lyra's ship. "First speaker, what's your assessment?" "The ancient records speak truth," Lyra replied, her tone troubled despite their tactical victory. "They learn from every engagement. Our success today means they will be better prepared tomorrow." "Then we'll be better too," Torres assured her. "Your people performed admirably. The integration of our tactics with your natural abilities exceeded expectations. But they'll be back," Chen added from her own command. "And in greater numbers." "Yes," Torres agreed. "This was just the first storm. The hurricane is still coming." As the fleet regrouped and began repairs, the commanders knew they had achieved something unprecedented, the first defensive victory against the Convergence in recorded history. But they had also confirmed that their ancient enemy was every bit as terrible as the legend suggested. The joint fleet had proven that their combination of harmony and strength could work. The question now was whether they could adapt quickly enough to face what would surely be an overwhelming response. The Convergence had never failed to consume a civilization. Once they set their sights on it, they wouldn't take this defeat lightly. As damage reports came in and repair crews began their work, Torres looked out at the assembled ships, human and collective vessels working together, each bringing their own strengths to the alliance. They had won the first battle, but the war for survival was just beginning. 2 weeks after their first encounter with the Convergence, the joint fleet had grown. Hundreds of collective ships now moved in perfect harmony with their human allies, their crystalline hulls gleaming against the backdrop of space. They had transformed the Mirian system into a fortress, using both human military expertise and collective environmental manipulation technology to create layers of defense. Admiral Torres knew it wouldn't be enough. Long-range sensors detecting multiple hyperspace signatures, Lieutenant Park announced, his voice steady despite the tension. Much larger force than before, at least 3 times the previous numbers. They've analyzed our capabilities, Captain Chen added from the Dauntless. They'll have countermeasures for everything we showed them last time. First speaker Lyra's voice came through the command channel, her crystalline tones carrying newfound strength. Then we will show them something new. We have not spent these past weeks idle. Torres allowed herself a small smile. The collective had indeed been busy, working with human engineers to develop applications of their technology that their peaceful society had never imagined. More importantly, they had grown more comfortable with the idea of fighting without losing their essential nature. All ships, implement Protocol Omega, Torres ordered. Collective vessels, you have tactical freedom. Show them what you've learned. The Convergence fleet emerged from hyperspace like a tide of living darkness. Their ships had evolved, their forms now covered in organic armor clearly designed to resist the crystalline energy weapons that had proved so effective in the previous battle. They moved with predatory grace, spreading out to envelop the defenders. But the joint fleet was ready. The collective ships began to pulse with light, not attacking but communicating. Complex patterns flowed through their crystalline hulls, creating a network of energy that linked their vessels together. Human ships moved through gaps in this network, their positions seemingly random but precisely calculated. Energy spike from the enemy fleet, Park reported. They're launching their first attack run. The Convergent ships fired, their weapons now tuned to frequencies they believed would penetrate collective defenses. But instead of attempting to evade, the crystalline ships caught the enemy fire in their linked energy network, channeling it through their formation in a complex dance of light. Now, Torres commanded. Human warships emerged from their carefully planned positions, their weapons enhanced by the energy the collective ships had captured and refined. The Convergence vessels recoiled as their own power was turned against them, their adaptive armor useless against their transformed attacks. They're adjusting, Chen reported, breaking into smaller groups, trying to disrupt our formation. Let them come, Lyra responded with serene confidence. We understand harmony in ways they never will. The battle spiraled into complexity as the Convergence tried to adapt to the defenders' tactics. But every time they thought they had countered one strategy, the joint fleet shifted to another. Human tactical flexibility blended seamlessly with collective harmony, creating patterns of attack and defense that seemed to defy conventional space combat logic. Their flagship is changing configuration, Park announced. Some kind of massive energy buildup. The largest Convergence vessel began to transform, its dark hull flowing like liquid as it assembled itself into what could only be described as a planet-killer weapon. Ancient records had spoken of their ability to destroy entire worlds when sufficiently challenged. They're desperate, Torres realized. They've never failed to consume a target before. They're going to try to destroy everything rather than accept defeat. No, Lyra said firmly. They will learn what true harmony means. The collective ships began to move in a new pattern, one they had never shown before. Their crystalline hulls vibrated in perfect resonance, creating a cascade of energy that rippled through space itself. Human vessels matched their movements precisely, adding their own power to the growing symphony of light and force. What they're doing, Chen breathed in amazement. It's impossible. The Convergence flagship fired its planet-killer weapon, a beam of dark energy that should have torn through everything in its path. But it met a wall of pure harmony. Not just energy shields or defensive fire, but the combined resonance of two civilizations working in perfect concert. The dark beam struck the Defender's formation and shattered, its power broken by something the Convergence had never encountered in all their eons of consumption. The strength of unity freely chosen, of peace backed by the will to defend it. All ships, final attack pattern, Taurus commanded. End this. The joint fleet moved as one, collective harmony guiding human precision. Their combined attack struck the Convergence fleet from multiple vectors simultaneously, overwhelming their ability to adapt. Dark ships began to break apart, their organic forms unable to cope with the perfection of the assault. The flagship tried to retreat, its planet-killer weapon now useless. But the defenders had positioned themselves perfectly, cutting off every escape route with overlapping fields of fire and energy. In its final moments, the massive vessel seemed to convulse, as if unable to comprehend its defeat. When it was over, the remaining Convergence ships fled in disarray, their legendary adaptation failing them in the face of something entirely new in their experience. They had finally met a force they couldn't consume, not because it was stronger or more violent, but because it represented a perfect balance they could never achieve. Victory confirmed, Park reported, his professional tone barely containing his excitement. Enemy fleet in full retreat. Long-range sensors show them leaving the sector entirely. Torres opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, well done, but stay alert. They might have lost this battle, but the Convergence isn't destroyed. They'll be back, eventually. And we will be ready. Lyra added, her crystalline form glowing with fierce joy. Not as warriors alone, nor as purely peaceful beings, but as something greater, protectors who understand both harmony and strength. As the joint fleet began the process of securing their victory, Torres reflected on how far they had come. The humans had helped the collective learn to defend themselves without losing their dedication to peace. In turn, the collective had shown humanity that true strength could flow from harmony as much as from force of arms. They had created something unprecedented, a defense born of both wisdom and will, of peace and power in perfect balance. The Convergence would indeed return someday, but they would find this new force stronger still, ready to prove again that the greatest power comes not from consuming others, but from standing together in defense of all they held dear. The age of pure peace was over, but the age of harmony protected by strength was just beginning.